In this video, it's my pleasure to be interviewing Grant Hoffman. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like and subscribe, and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Please let me know what you think in the comments below and what you'd like to see in future videos so I can work on that. My book, Backgammon Backgame Strategies, is available. There's a link in the description to where you can get it. And if you're interested in lessons, please contact me via email. My email address is in the description. Again, it's my pleasure to have Grant Hoffman. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Grant.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Good. Good. I've just been for a swim and I'm feeling refreshed and ready to go.
And you live in New Zealand?
I live in New Zealand and I live in a small town at the top of the South Island. It's a real tourist trap, about 50,000 people. Yeah.
Great. A lot of the viewers may not be familiar with you because you're from the Southern Hemisphere, but you're a pretty big name in backgammon. So we'll talk about that in a moment. I'd like to start with a little bit of background, biographical information. Can you please tell us where you grew up, where you were raised, your education, and so forth?
Well, firstly, I don't like the term big name. I'm a guy that likes playing backgammon. I grew up in New Zealand. I went to university in New Zealand, did a computer science degree, and married my wife Jackie. I think we're coming up to 41 years now. And
Congratulations.
thank you. I feel very lucky. I think I feel very lucky. My wife is part of the business. And we run a computer consultancy, and I do a little bit of teaching of backgammon at the same time. And I've been very lucky to have some great students, and yeah, it's very enjoyable. I always think I learn as much as the students do.
So that's great. You've been married 41 years. I didn't mention it to you, but actually today is my 8-year anniversary. So
Congratulations.
9-year anniversary. Now it's 9 years. It was from 8 and now it's 9.
That's great. It's
Fortunately, my wife doesn't watch these videos. So
my wife will definitely watch this one.
And do you have kids yourself?
I have 2 children, but we also have 2 grandchildren who live in Australia, and one is a month old. So,
congratulations.
yeah, somebody once told me children are a choice, grandchildren are a blessing.
Right.
It is. It's just a whole, you think you know what it's like being a parent, but once you have grandkids, it's just a whole different dynamic. It's great.
I heard this joke that I tell sometimes. Man said, I recently learned that grandchildren are better than children, and if I had known that, I would have had them first.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes. But I must admit, we've been pretty lucky with our kids as well. And
how old is your other grandchild?
The other grandchild is 3.5, coming up to 4. And
okay.
Yeah, it's just great. Yeah. So I
so
always
not quite old enough.
Sorry?
Go ahead, please.
I always
Go ahead,
combine
please.
They live in Australia, so one of the big tournaments here is the Australian Backgammon Champs, run by Simon Woodhead, the creator of BG Log. And so we always go to that, get the backgammon out of the way, so I'm not thinking about it. Then I go and see my daughter and her husband and the grandkids. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So I guess your grandchildren are not quite old enough, of course, to play. Did you ever play with your children?
Yes, I did. I played a lot of chess with my son because at 6 he had a real talent for it. He never took it that far, but when he was dating his wife to be, she was also into chess, and even after they're married, they play a lot of chess, which was really good to see. I think my wife was very frustrated because she was regularly being beaten by a 6-year-old at chess, which she found quite hard. He really did have a talent for it. Yeah.
A lot of the backgammon players got into backgammon from playing chess or also playing chess. How did you first get into backgammon yourself?
Well, I was a chess player. Um, I was school chess champion, and I was actually banned from playing. Um, because I literally could beat, when I was 13, I could beat all the teachers, all the adults. And they decided that in order to make it fair, I wasn't allowed to go in the contests, the school contests, which is really bizarre when you think about it. So I got quite disillusioned. And I could also see that I was going to have to memorize all the openings to, it just didn't appeal to me. So I'm 21, I'm at university, and my cousin, who I was quite close to, was her birthday was in a month. And I was at their house, and I said, to my aunt, what should I buy? And she said, oh, there's this game she plays, Backgammon, and literally the board is falling to pieces. And my cousin, enjoyed games, but to hear she was obsessed, I thought, oh, okay, that's fine. I went and bought her a really expensive board, and I had a little while before I gave it to her. So I had a friend who played, and I said, well, teach me this game. And so all I did for the next 48 hours was play backgammon. And I then packed it up, and I thought, this is dangerous. If I play this at university, I might not graduate. So I gave it to my cousin. My wife and I were in Australia about 3 years later. And one of the guys I worked with had come back from the Australian backgammon champs, and he'd come second. I said, well, can you recommend some books? And he said, yeah, well, there's McGrill, and he recommended Roberti's Red Book and Blue Book. And so we bought a traveling set, we went traveling, we bought the books, we played each other, and it just went from there. It was just an instant love affair. It really was. Yeah, and I never stopped after that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not
yeah.
uncommon. Not uncommon. What kinds of hobbies and interests do you have outside of backgammon, of course?
Well, as I said, I do cold water swimming, which is swimming in the sea without a wetsuit, which really wakes you up in the morning. And I also, when I do that, I actually I swim for 30 minutes, and I do all the formulas from backgammon, like EPC, take points, gammon values, Mitchie's proverbs. I combine the time of swimming with doing that. Yeah, my wife and I are also involved with the local Anglican church. So that tends to keep us rather busy. And of course, teaching as well. And I used to run tournaments, but I got out of that because I realized to grow backgammon, it had to be in Auckland, the main centre, to get the most players. So after 7 years, we had to let that go. And I have to say, the guy that runs it now is doing a much better job than I did. I thought I did a good job, but yeah, he's just so much better at it. And for the good of the growth of it, I had to go, yeah, I'm enjoying this, but I've just got to step back and let Anthony take over.
Yeah, that's good. That's one of the topics I like to discuss in terms of growing backgammon. What kinds of thoughts or ideas do you have of how we can grow backgammon?
Well, I talked to Michael Pines from San Diego, whose club has experienced amazing growth. And one of the nice things about what they're doing is they're making all their materials open source. So you can grab their poster, you can put your club name on. And I just talked to him about some of the stuff he did, which was he basically started at one end of the main street, walked through it down all the shops, asked them if they put a poster in, and said to them, look, if you support us in this way, we'll put a link to you on our website. So it gave them an incentive. So they got the advertising. And he even stuck a sign on his lawn saying, if you're interested in backgammon, knock on the door. The guy is just an animal. I mean, and somebody did. Yeah. But what I've been doing lately, it's quite easy because I teach, but what I normally say when I'm talking to somebody new, I ask them, what do you do outside work for fun? And they'll tell you. Normally they'll ask you what you do, and I'll mention, just casually, I play backgammon. And if they express any interest, that's great. If not, they will know I play backgammon. So people talk about spreading the word. You can't spread the word unless people know that you play backgammon. And I've had a couple of times recently where somebody came up to me and said, look, I'd like to try backgammon. What do I do? And I was quite surprised. It was sort of out of the blue. Somebody I'd met ages ago. And I said, well, I can lend you a book, Paul McGrill's book, and then come and just play some games and come along to the club. But in order to spread the word, you have to get the advertising out there. You have to take any opportunity to share it. And that's just what I do. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw, I actually did a video with Michael Pines.
Didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah, I'll send you the link. Yeah.
no, thank you. I'm going to say this. He is the unsung hero of the world champs. When Frank Frigo was playing in the final, Michael had another event to play in, and he said, forget that, I'm with you. And he was there for the whole 5-hour match. Mike's a great guy. Yeah, absolutely great guy.
He forfeited his own match?
Yes, he forfeited where he was in the other event. Said, no, I'm not going to play that. I'm here with you, supporting him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've got to talk with Frank about that. He's coming to the upcoming tournament here in Los Angeles, where I'm at, and he's going to do a talk, and I'm going to help moderate it, about winning the World
Mm.
Championship of Backgammon. He won this year in 2023, and he also won it many years ago, maybe 20 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Only
I
one
met
of few two-time champions.
Yeah, which is a very exclusive club. I met him in Chicago in 2017. Yeah, he was just a nice guy, and I instantly got on really well with him.
I believe he used to live in Chicago before he moved to San Diego, something like
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Um, okay, so some of the other topics, you mentioned a growing backgammon. You had this topic of having the students play in high school.
When we were at the New Zealand Champs one year, which is in Auckland, which is not where I'm from, the tournament director, Anthony, said, look, I want you to meet this guy, George. He's a teacher. He's, they've got a club at school. They play every lunchtime. Can you help him in any way possible? And I sat down with him. I said, look, how can I help? And he said, well, strange enough, one of our things is we don't have enough boards for all the students. And I said, no problem. We're sitting in a venue with 70 backgammon players. I grabbed a friend. I said, right, we're going around all the players. We're asking for boards for the students. Within 20 minutes, we had enough boards for them. And that to me is a testimony of, just the generosity of backgammon players. And Anthony would go and, spend lunchtime sometimes with them playing, giving his thoughts. And then he called me up and said, well, can you do some lessons for these guys? And I actually started thinking, I could do this, this, and this. And I stopped myself and thought, stop thinking what you can do. Ask George, the guy who runs the clubs, what he wants in lessons. What is the format he wants? What is the length? And he wanted 10 half-hour lessons so they could show them, then discuss. He gave me a list of topics. I did 12 lessons for them. And whenever I go to the tournament now, I spend time beforehand with them. You're just playing matches, talking about it. And what Anthony does is really neat. He reserves 10 places in the New Zealand Champs for them. The entry fee is really low. And so they all have a mini tournament to see who gets there. Then the student who gets the highest in the tournament, they have a presentation for him. And I think that's great. It's really a tangible incentive. And those kids play like they mean it. You know, they're not mucking around. They're focused and they go for the jugular. Some of the adults
Yeah.
have got quite nasty shocks, actually. One of them said to me, those kids know what they're doing. You know, we can't go easy on them. I thought, yeah, well, you can't go easy on anybody, but yeah, they play to win, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. We have our weekly tournaments twice a week, and there was a story actually 2 days ago. We had a weekly tournament. I was in the semifinals against a newer player. He's a high school student. He's 16 years old, and he beat me at DMP. But he's a good player.
Yeah, we had this guy, it was about 5 years ago, Dash, and I gave him some free lessons. And he's 16. He got knocked out of the main, and the consolation was Paskogammon. And
Ah,
he cleaned people up. I always try to teach how to play back games to people. In fact, and yeah, he won it. And everybody was shocked. And I thought, I did feel quite a lot of pride. I didn't tell people I'd given them lessons. I was like, yeah, you go, Dash.
that's that is complicated. Those are the most complicated. There was another video I did of a little bit of Paskogammon between
Yeah.
Jim Pasco, and on the other side was the team of Victor Ashkenazi and Matt Congeyer. And I did a little bit of commentary on that.
Wow. And that's up on your site.
It's
I
up.
must
I have a lot of videos. I feel like that's a great way to get it to the students. I feel
yeah.
like nowadays doing these videos is a great form of it's a great medium to get people involved in the game. I think getting the young people interested and involved is outstanding. I
Mm,
know it was about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Phil Simborg had this initiative of getting high school or college players, students to play. And I went to a local college, and we started a club. It was me with Joe Russell and Steve Sachs and Justin Nunez. We went to the local university here, it's UCLA. We started a club, and we actually started it through the chess club because
mm,
I think that's a good way to start. A lot of the chess players enjoy it, and chess is very established in schools.
yes.
So that's a great way. Is that how did you get the high school students to actually play? I know you got them the boards.
I don't know. George, I was literally introduced to the guy, and they said, oh, he's got some students that play every day. And I said, well, how many? He said 50. And I was like, wow. I I, I was, yeah. I don't know how he did it. He was embedded in the school, obviously, and he was a very keen backgammon player himself. Um, I must actually, next time I see him, find out how he actually got it started. But that idea about as an auxiliary to the chess club is a good idea. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So now you're teaching lessons.
yeah.
How did you learn yourself? What do you recommend to people if they're trying to improve their game? What did you do, or what do you recommend?
Okay, so I was always a reader. I always being geographically isolated. Um, I was always a reader, and I had to be. And I would read books just over and over again till I got it. Um, I got to a point where I'd actually managed to win the New Zealand champs, but the big one was winning the Australian champs because in the 50 years now, it's only ever been won twice now by non-Australian. And I actually was the one that won it twice, but how I did it was I said, I don't know where to go from here. I got in touch with Phil Simborg. He gave me 10 lessons, then fired me. He said, no, you're not having lessons with me anymore. You're going to stick rice. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened. I still, even today, take lessons from Stick because I believe that a teacher should have input and people challenging his thought process. And Stick is a great teacher. In fact, I get quite annoyed. Somebody saw one of his matches online and said, "Oh yeah, yesterday's player." And Stick isn't that active in the tournament scene, but make no mistake, he is as sharp as ever. And he'll have days where he'll just play DMP matches all day against XG. And his PR is phenomenally low. So don't underestimate him. If he turns up at a tournament, you're not in for an easy match. And yeah, so I have lessons with him. And I have my doubles partner in Australia. There are three of us who've won the Australian champs twice, and he's the other one. And we have quite a different playing style. And so we every week get together, we spend a couple of hours doing whatever topics we want to do. And sometimes we'll study, sometimes we'll play DMP matches because we're doubles partners. And he very much understands my weaknesses, I understand his weaknesses, and we compensate. It is with people. I am quite by nature a mathematical person, but it's worth saying that when I give lessons, I don't expect the students to become me. I'm very much orientated. Well, if you're non-mathematical, I'm going to teach you non-mathematically. I have 3 different sets of lessons for match play. One for the mathematically inclined, one for the non-mathematically inclined, one for a sort of in between. And that's been really helpful to me too, because I now play a lot of speed gammon. And in fact, I encourage people to play speed gammon. And people say, oh, I'm never going to play speed gammon. And what happens is they get into time trouble and they're playing speed gammon, whether they like it or not. So you better be prepared. And I've had opponents time out on me in live tournaments. I had one opponent time out on the final with $1,500 on the line. He was ahead and he timed out. And it was just a disaster. And he yeah. So even if I say to people, even if you're not going to play speed gammon, play a little bit. So you just get used to what to do when you're in time trouble. And Stick has this saying that any half decent move is better than timing out at speed gammon. Any half decent move is better than timing out. And it's true. And usually when people time out, they're doing things like bare ins and they're just trying to arrange the checkers to the nth degree. It doesn't matter. You're in time trouble. Any half decent move works. And I've had 4 opponents time out on me now in situations. And it's heartbreaking to see, because it's not necessary.
Yeah. It's better to lose a fraction of a percent of your equity than 100% of your equity.
Yeah. And the other question I sometimes get asked by people, beginner players, what do you use for doubling? And my answer is always, well, what's the format? If we're talking about New Zealand champs, unclocked, yeah, I'm going to use O'Hagan's law, I'm going to do that. If I'm playing speed game, I'm going to do this. If it's a clocked normal match, I'll alter how I do it. I'll alter how I'll do it. One of the things you said before about how do you promote backgammon, one of the things I've always tried when I turn up for a tournament is saying to the director, how can I help? And last tournament, a couple of 3 Middle Eastern guys turned up and they'd known doubling. And Simon said to me, teach them about match play because they are very shaky on this. So I took them aside. It was 2.5 hours till we started. And I used every single minute trying to teach them. And the point is, I would say to people, backgammon doesn't grow magically. We really have to help people, and the people that do that can't do it by themselves. The more people that help people, the more people that make people welcome at tournaments, even if it's just reassuring them, telling them what the format's going to be, any way we can help is just going to grow the game. It's going to make it easier for people. And that's one of my passions. I don't want to be a geriatric with every other face I see, geriatrics, when I go to tournaments. I want young people coming through, and to do that, we need to put the effort in. Sorry if I'm sounding like a broken record.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with that. Whatever people can do to help, whether it's with their time or donation or anything else.
Mm.
Some of the comments from what you were saying is that there are a few things like I've known Stick Rice for a long time, outstanding player. He's written a lot about match play.
Yes.
I have his book on it's a holding game guru,
Yes.
and he has his whole site. I used to go to BG Online every single day,
Yes.
and then it was on hiatus, but he recently restarted it. So that's an outstanding resource, as well as, of course, the social media forums. And
Yeah.
match play, when I was growing up, I played different. We had a
Mm.
different style. No doubling cube, no backgammons, a little bit different.
Mm.
But maybe it's been like 20, 25 years where I've been playing like the modern style that's
Mm.
popular everywhere. And match play, I basically kind of grew up playing chouettes or money games and never
Mm.
got into match play, but it can be very different. I recently did a very popular video with John O'Hagan about specifically match play. There were three
Yes.
positions that we looked at,
Yes.
and we looked at them at different scores, and sometimes it's a pass and sometimes it's a no double.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to know that whether you're doing the calculations like you
Yeah.
or John O'Hagan or others do, or sometimes I just simply think about what's the score,
Yeah.
what will happen, what will my score be if I win without doubling and with doubling, and same with losing, and what will my opponent score, and just based on that, that'll give you a really good idea. That'll make a big
Yeah.
difference.
The
Um,
every tournament I go to, I reread Styx articles before I go. And years ago, Moochie did a thing called Backgammon TV, and he did a 20-minute lesson on match play, which is quite non-mathematical. And I use that as a basis when I teach non-mathematical people. And I use that when I taught the Middle Eastern guys. And one of the lovely things about that is two of the three guys I taught got really deep in the tournament, like really deep. And they came up to me afterwards and said, thank you. We wouldn't have got as deep. And that to me was the second next best thing to getting deep myself. It was it was just fantastic. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of knowledgeable players around, and I would say in a club situation, don't just beat your opponents. New people coming through. We've got a new guy, John, and I'll spend time with him trying to explain anything I think that would help him with his permission. I don't want to come across like, oh, you should do this, yada, 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 like some know-all. I was saying, look, can I give you a couple of ideas? And he is progressing very well, actually. We played, was it 5 9-point matches, and he beat me in 2 of them, which was and he beat me thoroughly. The first 2 matches, the cube got high and he won them 9-0. And the next 2 matches, I think I returned the compliment, or he might have got 1 point. And the third one, I actually managed to salvage my reputation. But it's good. It's good seeing him coming along. He's I always say with people, I can deal with wrong thoughts. If you're thinking about a situation wrong, we can work with that. I can't deal with if you don't think at all about it. what a chess player would call pushing wood, because I don't know what to do. I'll just do that. As long as you're thinking, you're going to get better. And if I can help you with that thinking, fantastic. Yeah.
And you mentioned Michi's seminar on match play. He's obviously a world expert on that topic. Not sure if you're aware, but it's my understanding that he's working on a book about the 5-point match. Have you heard about that?
I said Moochie. It was
Oh,
Moochie's.
Mochi. Oh, I
Mochi.
thought you said Michi. Well, Mochi's
No, no,
an
no.
expert as well.
Yeah.
Mochi wrote a book. He wrote a recent
Yes.
book about masterclass, but
Yes.
also Michi has written multiple books, and he's working on one too. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah, it is. When people join the Backgammon Club, I instantly recommend 501 Essential Backgammon Problems by Bill Roberti. It
Yes.
gives them a wide knowledge. The next books I say you should get are Mitchie's books, the 3 books. And those are just essential. So Mitchie is a nice guy. I met him in Chicago, had a meal with him and Bill Riles, just lovely guys. Lovely, it was lovely.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like you have read a lot of books, and the first one I read was Paul McGreal,
Yeah.
and Bill Roberti, in my opinion, is the most prolific author in backgammon. I mean, other authors that would kind of be at the top
Mm.
would be people like Kit Woolsey and Walter Trice, and more recently, Michi has written many
Mm.
books. Mark Olson has written many books. There are many books, but those are all really good as well.
Well,
Uh,
with Bill Roberti's latest book,
yes,
there's a formula in there for when you both have 1-point boards and want to double. And I memorized the formula, and that's come up a couple of times where I've offered a double. My opponent's gone, no, that's not a double, and taken the cube, and we've pulled it up afterwards, and it has been a double. So yeah, I'm big fan of Bill Roberti's stuff. Very useful, very practical, very well thought out.
that must have been in chapter 15 of volume 3 because I read
Yes.
all of them. I know the last one was on doubling. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I read all of his books. The most recent ones I read, and what I learned the most, I think, if I can sum up 2 words from the entire 3-volume set that I
Mm.
learned the most is basically the subtitle of volume 2, which is
Yeah.
everything matters. Because
Yeah.
somebody told me one time, whenever you're making some sort of decision, look at the entire board. And that's the same kind of thing as everything matters, because one thing over here may make you want to do one thing, but if there's a slight variation or something else going on elsewhere, it might lead you to do something different. So everything does matter. You have to kind of look at
Yeah.
everything and not just have like a rule of thumb, like always make the 5-point or always do this or always do that.
I did an interesting exercise when years ago when I was playing a lot of money games. For about 2 years, I recorded all my openings, and I recorded if I won and how many points I won. And then I looked at what my best openings were and what my worst openings were. Now, this was like probably 15 years ago. And the third rolls had just come out, and I'd been given a copy of them. My worst openings were 6-5 run and 6-1 split. And I was horrified. These are supposed to be high equity openings. So I got all the third rolls, worked out where I was going wrong with them, with those ones. And because of that, my game improved. And Bill Roberti speaks a lot about the 6-1 structure. And a lot of what he said I'd already knew, but it was good to see it put down. And it was really quite a humbling experience for me. The funny thing with that analysis that I did was my best roll wasn't a 3-1 point, which really shocked me. My best roll for winning the most points and the most games was a 2-1 slot. And I was literally talking about this with Stick on Saturday, and he said, yeah, because you're going to end up in very complex games. You may be hit, you may not. The game's going to be longer, and that will favor you. If getting into complex games will favor you. But I was quite shocked because I just thought, oh, it'll be 3-1 point. I've made the point. I'm good to go. But it wasn't.
Yeah, it is the strongest opening rule. I recently did a video. I've done a
Yes.
number of position analysis videos.
Yeah.
Um, this one, actually, it was published yesterday. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
I've seen
saw
it.
it.
I've seen it.
It
It was
was,
excellent.
thank you. It was I tell people it's the most important position to study because it's the most common position in backgammon, and of course that's the opening position. So I went through every single role and how to play it. And I think that's important. Of course, like I went through the doubles too, even though that's not legal, just
Yeah.
to understand it. But the 3-1 is, of course, the strongest opening role that's legal. However, there are a lot of other ones that induce complicated games, like
Yeah.
slotting with the 2-1, which is correct, and then splitting with the sixes, like the 6-4, 6-3, and 6-2,
Yes.
as well as other things like slotting with 5-1 or 4-1. And a lot of people back in the 70s used to slot with 6-2, or I've even seen a double slot with a 6-1, slotting the 7 and 5 points.
Yes. Um,
I saw
the
that by Jim Pasco.
yeah, I have one regular opponent who does what I call 4-1 wild, which is splits 24.
Yes,
Yeah. And he regularly does that. And another one that does 3-2
it's
reverse
plot.
split. Yeah. And it's so you have to know all the responses. And it's no coincidence that Stick is an absolute fanatic on early game stuff, first rolls, second rolls, third rolls. And probably I've got that from him, but my training partner and I have spent a lot of time looking at third rolls. I memorized all the second rolls, but what I say to students is memorizing the responses is fantastic. It's great, you'll make the right move, but it's more important to understand the why. Understand the why so that you can, when it's at DMP, you know what to change to. When it's gammon save, when you know how to vary that. Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. The first book that I wrote was not actually formally published. It was myself. Before we
Oh,
had all this, I did rollouts of all the second rolls. This was
yes.
over 10 years ago before it was all available. And then I made a book of it and I went through and I was memorizing it. But sometimes there's a small difference between the correct play and the second play.
Yes.
The idea is not to memorize, as you said, the correct play, but if you understand why it's correct, then you can apply it to a position later on in the game where there is a
Yes.
big magnitude of difference between the correct play and the second play.
Yeah.
And for example, if you're doing like an opening 4-3, the minor split is better than the major split. So playing 24-21 with 13-9 is better than playing 24-20 with 13-10 for multiple reasons. Because number one, you're not slotting the point that the opponent most wants to make, and number two, the builder on the 9 point is very powerful offensively as compared to a builder on the 10 point or the 11 point. I have this whole article I wrote called Dice Value Difference that shows
Yeah.
all the diversification of the rolls, because when you have the 8 and 6 points, those are 2 points away. So rolls like 3-1, 4-3,
Yeah.
4-2, and 5-3 are productive. But when you have one on the 9 point, you have checkers 1 point away and 4 points away, as well as 2 points away. So I call it the dice value difference, or DVD 1, 2, and 3. So for example, 2-1, 4-3, and 5-4 become strong, as well as 4-1, 5-2, 6-3. Additionally, the 6-2 becomes good because you can make the bar point. But thinking about all these things, it's complicated, it's
Yeah.
mathematical, but it's good to learn. And this is what I teach my students. Now, people are interested in learning. You give lessons, right? What's the best way to contact you if students are interested in lessons?
Um, my email, grant@hoffman.kiwi, which is there's no co or nz, it's .kiwi. Hoffman spelt with 2 F's, MAN. I also have a blog, which is BGPOW for position of the week .blogspot.com. I will add one thing to what you said though about the 4-3. And I've tried this in backgammon praxis. Frank Talbot was talking about with the 4-3 why he always does the major split, and everything you said is entirely true. The difference is when people as a second roll a 5-3, most players make the 3-point when the correct roll is to hit. So
Right.
all of these things are true, but you have to remember you're playing a human being. Now, if I'm playing stick and I'm going to split, I'm going to do the minor split because he's not going to make that sort of mistake. But yeah, you've always got to factor that in, and you have to use it with care. But sometimes you really can alter your doubling positions. We had an incident in the doubles where we were playing this team, my partner and I, and it was the team we were playing was one strong player, the other guy just did what he was told, and we made our move. He made their move, and I said, okay, we've got a double. And my partner looked at me in horror, sort of, you could tell in his eyes it wasn't as obvious. And he said, you sure? I said, yeah, but this is obviously a double. And I doubled, and they passed. And after the match, my partner said to me, really? Do you really think that was a double? I said, of course not. He said, why? And I said, I saw the look in his eye of absolute horror. And I said, there was no technical reason to double there. I'm not even sure it was a double. But the look in it, we're not playing XG, we're playing a human. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Woolsey's law. If you think your opponent may pass, then you should double.
Yeah. I the first time I learned that, I was playing in a chouette, and I used to play in the chouette. Then I used to practice with another friend of mine, Ray, on a Thursday. So I was telling him in the chouette, I used this thing called Woolsey's law, and he said, well, was it a double? I said, no, actually it wasn't. And he laughed and called me a turkey and said, oh, you turkey, you doubled a known double. And I said, well, hey, Ray, who's the bigger turkey? Me for doubling, or you and the other 4 who passed that non-double? And there was a silence, and he went, you want to go over this Woolsey's law thing again? Yeah, you're playing humans, and look, the worst case scenario, it was close to a double. It wasn't a double. It paid big dividends. And for those people who say, oh yes, but against really good players that wouldn't happen, when I was playing in Chicago, I was playing one of the Japanese players, very, very good player, and I doubled him, according to Woolsey's law, and I sat there, and while he was thinking about it, analyzed it, and I realized it's not a double. It literally is a no double. And he picked the cube up, put it to the center, and said pass. And he really thought it was a pass. I talked to him afterwards. Okay, so even good players make mistakes. Yeah.
I have a lot of interesting stories about that. For example, one time we're playing a chouette, and then a bunch of people double. It was premature, but they doubled, and then the opponent took, and then the next sequence, now it was a double, and it was a correct take. But then what I said is, now that I stated, now that it's a pass, I'm going to double, and then they passed.
Ooh.
So you learn some of these tricks, and other things I've learned is what I call I'm sure you're familiar with the term efficient double or
Yes.
profitable double. So when the double is on the double no double border, you're not gaining as much by doubling. So that's an
Yep.
inefficient double.
Double.
When it's on the take pass border, that's an efficient or profitable double because you're
Mm.
gaining the most amount of equity. Now, I've coined this term called a supra-efficient double, which is, and there are two variations. One of them is what you discussed. It's not quite a double, but the opponent passes, so you gain much more,
Mm.
right? And the other one is against players that take deep. You wait until it's a pass, then you've technically lost your market. But with these people, you're not losing the market because they're still taking. So you wait till it's a pass, it's too
Mm.
good to double, and they still take. So you gain even more equity. So that's what they call a supra efficient double. These aren't things that are written in books.
Yes. No. The uh one of the tournaments I won, I'll try and protect the names of the people. 15-point match. There was quite a lot of money on the line. First three games, I split. My opponent went blitz mode and just overwhelming. 5-2, just lost the first three games passing. So I thought I better not let this guy push me around. So I redoubled him early the next game, and he passed. Okay, it was a 15-point match. Okay, next game I redoubled earlier. He passed. The third game I redoubled him even earlier, and he passed. So I caught up with him. The fourth game, I doubled what you would at a 4-away, 2-away score, and he took. And I rolled like a Greek god, and I gammoned him, and he went into shock. So I just kept on going with my cubes, and he passed 7 no doubles to get to the score. I was 4 away, 10 away. He got into he had a 1-5 back game. I didn't have my 2-point, and he's 10 away. I'm 4 away. And I remember sitting there thinking, he's going to pass. And I thought, can I really risk this? And I analyzed it, and I just thought, the gun is loaded, just pull the trigger. And I doubled him. He thought about it and said, nah, it's not good enough, and passed. So next game, 3 away, 10 away, never redouble at 3 away when contact positions, won an undoubled gammon. Next game I won it. And in that 15-point match, he passed, and it was the final, he passed 8 no doubles. And my friend afterwards said, well, it worked, but man, weren't you risking anything? I said, no, I could see it. I could feel it. I knew he was going to pass. And he basically, chucked away half the match for no doubles. I hope he doesn't hear this, because he's probably still going to be angry at me.
Well, we don't know. I don't know who it is.
No. You leave it in. But the point is, I think Walter Trice mentioned in his book, those sort of things you put in a jar that's got on it, use with care. If you regularly double when you shouldn't be doubling, it's not going to end well. It ended,
yes.
yeah, it ended very well in
And
that circumstance.
I wanted to talk about some of your tournament wins maybe in a moment, but I wanted to go through a couple of other things here. Let me go ahead and let's see. I'll start. Oh, where did those go? I was going to share. Let me see if I have it somewhere here. Oh, I guess. Oh, okay. I don't have it here. I was going to talk about your books and some other things. Let me go ahead and share this one here. This is your position of the week, which we'll
Yeah.
talk about. But I think that if we click here, okay, so here are a couple of the books. This is the one, It's Your Move, 101 Backgammon Positions to Improve Your Game. And these are your tournament victories. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about this book, the It's Your Move, and there's another one called Priority Thinking.
Okay. Priority thinking. Well, firstly, when I started doing this email positions once a week, I wanted to not just say what the alternatives are, like write down the move. I wanted to diagram it and get people to see it, so they, didn't need to grab a board. And we took about the first 104, and we ordered it by topic with my wife, who is very good at English, and made it more readable. And we didn't want to charge a whole lot of money, so we made it I can't remember what it is, and we just put it out there. We're up to now position 322 or something, so Jackie's saying let's put another one together. So that was that. Priority Thinking was an earlier book that was done with Clyde Wolpe, and it was usually his name on it, but when I put a second one onto Amazon, I had to change it to both my names. That was a much shorter book because Clyde had wanted it to be the sort of thing you read before you go to a chouette. So it's easily readable in a couple of hours. So it is a co-written book, and Clyde was the main driver of that. And honestly, I haven't sold hardly any copies for a long time. And it was based on some Gammon Village articles. I got involved. I just got involved because I corresponded about a couple of things with him, and he was actually really good. He was the one that taught me he said to me, stop thinking mathematically. I want you to not think mathematically for 3 months when you play, which was very hard for me, but the best thing I ever did, because it helped me to appreciate how people who don't think mathematically work. It taught me how to play speed gammon better. So yeah, but the main one is It's Your Move. It was a lot of fun. It's all diagrammed there. It's not in a hard copy because we just wanted it downloadable, so it's not going to cost people the earth. Yeah,
It's not easy to write a book.
it isn't, and it's. My wife did an amazing job of changing the way I phrased things. And it was, having somebody who's such a wordsmith as your partner is just fantastic. I must say, I've read your book. I got it as soon as I could. And although I've spent a lot of time studying Backgammon, it was just great. I learned stuff, and it's on my recommended reading to friends. You've got to get this book and read it. So yeah, I thought you did a very good job.
Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, that's very kind of you. I appreciate it. It's very technical. I don't recommend it to like newer players, but what I do recommend to people is to do what I do is I have it on my bedside table and I read a few pages and it helps me fall asleep.
The checker play stuff was I know what you're saying about the doubling stuff. It could be quite technical. I found the checker play stuff, the last 65 pages, I think anybody could read that. I think
that was my favorite part.
Yeah, I think you gave lots of good examples. You varied positions by 1 or 2 pips, moved the blocking point. I thought that was very approachable. I think that was easily readable by players at any level.
Thank you. I think that's a good way for me when I learn. I just change the position a little bit, make a variant, and kind of go from there. So good. I haven't. These are actually some books I haven't read, but I like to read every single book. So I'm gonna pick these up and read it. I read fast. When I first started, I was in graduate school, medical school. I did about 15 years of training and schooling after high school. So I've done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of writing. So I've gotten quick at it and I enjoy it, especially if it's on a topic like backgammon, which I enjoy really quickly. So I'm going to get through those.
Okay. So yeah, if you could buy one, get it's your move. The priority thinking is quite simple in one way, but Clyde wanted it that way, and he was the main driver of that. It's your move. The first two positions, coincidentally, I think are actually quite simple. And I've had people read it and go, "Oh, yeah, first two, this is going to be easy." Bang, and then they hit the rest and go, "Oh, it's not that easy." And in fact, I remember with much amusement when I was sending out the emails, one of the really good players, I sent out the position and the solution 24 hours later. He sent me back, "Oh, why did you even put this out? It's so obvious." And when I sent out the solution, his obvious move was the third best. And he sent me an email going, "Oh, yes, I get the point." And they are all moves that actually happened. Some to me, some not to me. I have a friend in South Africa called Tony, who honestly would have supplied me with 150 positions. He was one of Stick Rice's students as well. And I don't know how we started communicating. And I think he sent me an email about a position. I said, "Oh, you do this, this, and this." That's how I'd look at it. And he kept on sending me positions. We got to know each other a bit, got on really well. And he honestly, I think of the 300 positions, I wouldn't be surprised if over half of them have come from him. So, it was very important to me that they weren't contrived. They were real positions. And as I say, I diagram every alternative, not just talk about it in the theoretical, so that people don't need to have a board with them when they're reading it.
That's great. Okay, so that's the book. The other thing that you had mentioned that you have here are all your tournament victories. This is really quite outstanding. Congratulations. I know you were talking about one of them, but here it says Australian 7-point speed gammon winner, New Zealand online champion 2022 and 2021, South Island 2021, 2020, San Antonio Speed Gammon 2019, Australian 2015, 2016, two-time New Zealand 2007, 2013, runner-up 6 times. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. The funny thing is the runner-ups was when I was running the tournament. And honestly, running a tournament and playing at the same time is murder. I was so tired. And I remember one of my friends who I used to teach, he's also won it twice. And when I said I was no longer going to run the tournaments, he was really encouraging me to. And I said, "Well, Anthony will do a good job." And he said, "No, I don't care about that. I just want you tired. By the time we get down to the final few players, I want you exhausted so that you're no threat." I thought, okay, thank you very much.
I know. I know how you feel. I actually did that. I mean, yours was a major tournament. I ran a small tournament the other day, like 15, 20 people in our local group running the tournament and playing in the tournament. But a lot of times in like the bigger ones nowadays, the tournament director doesn't play, but
yeah,
usually they enjoy playing.
Yeah, the thing I would say about tournaments and even clubs, if issues arise, deal with them. And I've had to take players aside and basically say, unacceptable behavior. And I guess I like to be liked, but we learned very quickly that if somebody stepped over a line, you had to deal with it. And I always made a policy of dealing with it, not by saying, you're being a real jerk here, but by saying, this is the behavior that you're doing. This is unacceptable. You need, in one case, I just checked the person out, but I went through it with him and I said, "I'm going to ban you for next time because of this. But after that, you need to modify this and you're welcome back." And it doesn't win you any popularity contest. But interestingly enough, that guy who I did that to turned it around and got rid of what he was doing. And when I was in an online contest, I think I got to the final. He was the first person that sent me an email saying, "Go get him. I really want you to win." I would say that with the club behavior, if you have a boorish person, I won't tell you what this person did, because it was bad enough that I had to ban them. Issues don't go away. The sooner you deal with them, the sooner they will go away. But for goodness sake, when you do it, don't tell the person he's a jerk and he's, focus on the behavior, focus on what they've got to do to turn it around, and tell them they're always welcome back once they deal with it. That's just unfortunate. But we learned that very quickly. We had to deal with a couple of incidents of people, overstepping the line seriously. One behavior I had to get rid of. Guy was playing a tournament. Brenda's watching. While the tournament's on, he was saying, "Why aren't you doubling?" Totally unacceptable. I said, "Look, you can't do that." And the guy got quite bolshy about it, quite aggressive. We had to deal with it. We did. And yes, I don't particularly like conflict, but for the good of the other players, that's your responsibility as the club director. That's your responsibility as the tournament director. And it certainly has made me appreciate tournament directors more. I think they do an outstanding job, and we need to support them in whatever way we can. Yeah.
Absolutely. I heard this one time. They say the most important things in life you learn in kindergarten.
Yes. But it's amazing. Still, in adulthood, kids throw their toys out of the cot and go complain. And I've had. I remember one incident. I was playing. I never tell hard luck stories, and it's not really a hard luck story for me. I was playing this guy, and I'd been beating him all night, and miles ahead. There's no way I can win. And he said, "Okay, maths boy, what would it take to win?" I said, "Well, I'd probably have to roll double sixes twice in a row. Then I'd probably have to roll double fives at least 5 times in a row. And I then rolled double sixes twice in a row. And I then rolled double fives 5 times in a row and won." And he grabbed my board, flipped it up like that, walked out of the room saying a certain 4-letter word over and over and over. And I was tempted to say best of 48, because I was so far ahead. I thought perhaps I better not. That's backgammon. And look, I told that story to a couple of people, and they said, well, quite frankly, they didn't blame him, because and it was amazingly bad luck. And he wasn't malicious, and he apologized later. So okay, so fine, these things happen.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. What's the difference between children and adults? Their age.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they act the same. I've heard some stories, like a friend of mine told me one time, have you ever had 2 of your opponent's checkers closed out and then lost in the race? I said, no, I've never done that, but I've won with, 1 checker left. The opponent had 1 checker left, and I had all my checkers, and I won. These things happen.
Yeah, I have actually been in the opposite situation, where my opponent had 14 checkers off and I won. And look, recently I lost in a tournament where the percentage chance of me winning was high 90s, and I lost. And a friend of mine said after me, aren't you upset? And I said, well, if players who you're better than can't win occasionally, then they won't be interested in playing. So, look, I won some money. I had a good time. And I wish my opponent luck, quite sincerely. And I really wasn't upset. I was like, yeah, that was unfortunate. That's life, you know.
That you set a good example of the appropriate attitude. So let's take a look at this one we were looking at a moment ago. So this is Grant's puzzle, backgammon position of the week. Are you seeing this now?
Yes, I am.
So this, you do it once a week and you put a position here, and
Yeah.
you can click to read about it. This one was from November 5th, and here there's once a week. So we'll go through a couple of these positions, but before we do, it seems like you've been doing this for quite some time. How did you get started with this?
Um, in the early days, the New Zealanders and the Australians weren't coordinating their tournaments. And I'd been over there, and one was close to one of the ones over here. So I just sort of had the attitude, how do I get these guys, how do I get us talking? And so I thought, well, if I send out a position of the week, and then 24 hours later, I'll send out a solution. And it was enormously successful. I just thought I'll do it and see, you know, when people get tired of it. And I had like one of my friends, they don't use computers. So him and his brother were both players, and every week they'd have a $20 bet, who was right. And yeah, it just sort of grew from there. I received a lot of encouragement from the Australians. The Australians and New Zealanders started coordinating tournaments, and I like to think that what I did had a bit to do with that. And we recently merged our federations, so which is great, and it makes a lot of sense. And New Zealanders go to their tournaments, they come to ours. Yeah, it's just good. So it just started like that, and yeah, and it just sort of carried on. And I've literally, from what Tony, my friend in South Africa, sent me, I think I've still got 150 positions I haven't done before I even get to new ones I'm adding. So I'll just carry on as long as people are interested in reading. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great resource to learn. We talked about how people can learn. These types of resources are outstanding. I wanted to go through a couple of these positions because I feel like they're very educational. So let's start with this one that I found was interesting. I'll put it up here. Are you able to see the screen now?
Yes. Can I just say one thing? I don't know if I said it to you before the interview or during. In New Zealand, we do not use Jacoby for money games. Okay, we're the only country that seems to be that doesn't, maybe the Arab ones, where we do use the Dublin Q. So you can lose a gammon, and you can become too good. It's hardly ever matters, and a lot of these positions, the cubes will be turned, but it's just worth keeping in mind.
Yes. So that's great. So what I'll do is I'll show the position here, and I'd like to, we'll look at the position, give the viewers a moment to kind of look at it. If you like, you can pause your video, but in brief, this is a money game. Is that correct?
Yes, money game, no Jacoby.
No Jacoby rule. I think the analysis that I did was with the Jacoby rule, and for the players that are not familiar with it, the Jacoby rule states that you cannot win a gammon nor a backgammon unless the cube has been turned. If you do so, it only counts as 1 point.
Yeah.
So with the analysis, the Jacoby rule is in effect, but it doesn't really matter in this case. White is playing at the bottom, black is at the top. Black has a blot on white's 4 point, and white still has 1 checker back. And black has a five, I'm sorry, white has a 5-2 to play. So let's just pause for a moment. We'll allow the viewers to pause the video if they like. Think about how they would play it, and in a moment, we'll go through the analysis.
Okay.
Okay, so this is on the blog. I'll put a link in the description so people can go read what you wrote. But talk about what's your way of thinking when you go about this position and this problem?
Okay, so I like to deal with what I call the facts. What's the race? You can have opinions about the structures or whatever. The facts are the race, position of the cube, what's the score? Now, the score is irrelevant here because it's money. The position of the cube is in the center, but we are ahead in the race. We want to get out of there. He wants to stop us getting out of there. If he makes that 21 point, we are at a severe disadvantage. We're at a disadvantage whatever we do here. So that's my first thing. My first instinct here, and I made this move quite quickly over the board when it happened in the club, and I was accused of losing my mind with what I did, but I stuck to my guns. So my initial thoughts are, I really don't want him to make that point. Yes, I could step up and I could play safe 13-8, but he will flood the outfield. He will be in control. I need to stop him now. And the only way to stop him is to hit with a 2. And so that was my first thing. I know I need to hit 6-4. Then I needed to go, okay, I've got to play a 5. Well, obviously I'm not playing 7-2. I'm not destroying structure. I have to play either 6-1 or 8-3. And it's very rarely in these circumstances you want to play 6-1. You're going to leave a blot anyway. So I just thought I just played 8-3. And I played this move quite quickly because it seemed quite intuitive to me. I have to stop him. This is the most important issue. And that's the thing that Clyde taught me, is to identify what is my highest priority here. And if you listen to interviews with Matt Cohen-Geyer, Phil Sundberg asked him, what does it make you a good player? Is it your mathematical ability? And quite frankly, if you know Matt Cohen-Geyer, Sticks told me he doesn't do a running pip count. He does an absolute pip count. So he knows the absolute pip count at every move. And how he does it is, I can do a running, but I can't do what he does. So I said, is it this? Is it this math ability? And he said, no, it's be able to choose what is my most important priority at any given stage. Here, we have to stop him making that point. We have to hit. And then the only 5 is 8-3. That's thought process. Yeah.
I've spoken with Matt. I've interviewed him, and definitely. I agree. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, and what you said about variations. Now, you could play the safe play, which is wrong here, of 24-22, 8-3. But if we alter this position and move a black checker from black 6 point to black's 4 point, then we're not hitting loose. Then our whole priorities change. We're going to the state where we need to get out of there. Our best way of getting out of there is to play, let's see, 24-22 and 13-8. And
there's no 13. There's no one on the
13. 8-3. 8-3.
8-3, right.
Yeah. I was going to say and hope for 6-6, but actually I don't think we would hope for 6-6 because it would leave a double shot. Maybe we would, because at least it gets us out of there. But unfortunately, the 6s, if I'm right, the 6s then play. You jump 2, then you'd play 7-1. So yeah, okay, that's probably not that bad either. But the priority has changed. Hitting then becomes not a good idea. Running becomes a good idea.
Right. When I was looking at this problem, there are a couple things that I was thinking about. If you're going to be primed here, that's really bad. Of course, if you're ahead in the race, you want to race, but when you have one checker all the way back disconnected, that's really difficult. So you need to get this moving before he makes this prime. And if black can make this prime, as you said, white is in trouble. So the tempo the tempo is in order, the tempo hit. So hitting him just to prevent him from making this point or to prevent black from hitting another checker back, that's key. So you kind of have to hit. And then
Yeah.
the 8-3 was when you see these positions a lot, it becomes rather natural because the tempo is the one thing. The other thing is black is creating this prime, and they say the best way to counter a prime is with a counter prime.
Yeah.
So you're gonna want to make a prime on this side. The best way to do it is just to slot the 2 points.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Let me go ahead and put
But the other
solution
thing
up.
is here that and you've done the analysis with Jacoby. Without Jacoby, the side benefit, which is a side benefit, not the main, is you will win more gammons by doing the hit too. You'll probably lose more as well, but
Correct.
you because there's not
Yes.
Jacoby, you I'm factoring that in. Yeah.
So this is what it looks like, and then the other play that like a lot of people may think is just eight
Yeah.
make the 3 point, just be
Yeah.
safe doing like this, and it ends up looking like this. But
Yeah.
that's a huge blunder because now black has the initiative. He can escape this and try to
Yeah.
make this, and this one has to go all the way around.
Yeah.
Looking at this analysis compared to 6-1, 6-4, which looks like this, it does nicely unstack that heavy 6 point, but
Yeah.
you do win more gammons and you lose fewer gammons, and you win
Yeah.
more games.
Yeah. It's yeah, this was something I would find hard. It's I just yeah, I see it even when I see the analysis. There's just something beautiful about making the 3 point, making those continuous points because you have the two different game plans. Whereas once you make the one, you really are um yeah, it really is full blitz. And you
Committal.
yeah, and you have some bad rolls for your opponent, like a 1-5 if you don't have a checker there. So yeah, and as I say, hard to some people find this easy, some people find it hard. Um, with the email that I sent out, I actually ended up with quite a mixed audience. Some were New Zealanders, but a couple of non New Zealand Australians have crept onto the list, including at least one ex-world champion. So I'm always acutely aware of the audience that I'm talking to because I don't want to be too technical. I don't want to be positions to be too simple, and trying to balance that sometimes is it can get really hard. I mean, you mentioned
That's right.
efficiency. I had one position where I was talking about the ability to double next turn and the whole concept that if you can double next turn, you should make the move. And that is actually slightly inaccurate. It's whether you can make an efficient double next turn. And I
Right.
went and explained efficiency, and it was quite a long post. And Ian Dunstan, who's the Australian player who's won the Australian champs 4 times. He's a very good player. He's just sent me an email, said, look, I know what you're trying to say. I think you went too technical. I think you lost a few people with that.
Yeah.
So I edited that down when I put it into the book. And he's right. And trying to do that balance can sometimes be quite tricky because I have some very new players reading, and I have, as I say, a world champ reading. So, I'm sure I'm going to mess up and not get the balance perfectly right. I think
Right. Right.
people have been a bit
And we
forgiving.
can look at this. Yeah, we can look at this variant. Let me just
Yeah,
go ahead and uh, move this like this. This is what you were talking about, right?
yeah. Now you've got to get to
Now
the
you're,
yeah, I mean, almost yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and safety it, and yeah. So as you said, everything matters in these positions. You know,
Very good.
yeah, that's what makes
Uh,
backgammon such a fascinating game.
yeah. So there's a, let me see. Let me share the other one and we'll look at one more position before we conclude, if that's okay. This is
Yeah, sure.
another position. Are you able to see
Yes,
this now?
yes.
Okay, so again, this is white is playing at the bottom. The cube is in the middle. It's a money game. White has a 2-1 to play. White has 2 checkers back. Black also has 2 checkers back. White has a black has a 4-point board on this side. White has a 2-point board, but a solid 3 prime with the back of it slotted. White is behind in the race by 9 pips before the roll, so it will be behind 6 pips after the play.
Right.
So let's pause for a moment. We'll let the viewers pause the video if they like, think about it, and then we'll go through the analysis. And while they're doing that, I should say I will put a link to the blog where people can go view this and read your analysis, which is, of course, very outstanding as well.
Thank you.
So
It's
we'll pause for just a moment.
yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I'm giving you a very canned, concise sort of analysis, but some of the analysis goes into much more detail, shows the various alternatives, and gives so you can see it visually. You can and some thoughts on why certain things aren't optimal. Yeah.
Okay, so now that the viewers have had a moment to look at the position and think about it, um, tell us what are you thinking about when you're deciding on the play here with the 2-1?
Okay, so when I'm looking at my opponent, firstly, I'm thinking about the race, and as you say, it's not much ahead. The cube isn't turned, and I'm thinking I really don't want to play an ace point game unless unless it's a last resort. So yes, I could focus on trying to build my prime, but if I do that, the flow of the game, or as Zizi said, what does the future hold? He's going to bring builders down. I want to stop him bringing builders down. I want to upgrade my anchor if I possibly can. So both of those make it so that I need to split with a 2-1. And instantly, before I think of anything else, I think, okay, if I do that, how does my opponent play a 5-1? There are roles that I can instantly see are going to cause them trouble. So I'm trying to upgrade my anchor, and I'm trying to stop him bringing checkers down into the outfield. So this is good. Okay, so that would be the 2. That's I would look at some other options. I mean, anything like 13-11, trying to stay there to build a prime. His prime, if you will, his board is more advanced, so I'm sort of not liking that. So I'm going to split. Then the question becomes the 1. Yes, I can go with the 7-6, which leaves the 5 slotted. It gives me 3 builders for the 4, a 3 and 2 point. But I really don't like the vulnerability on both sides of the board. If he goes into the outfield, I want to take my shot. So I see the danger of a 1-6-2-5 or 3-4. That's 6 rolls or 17% of the time. He's going to hit. I'm going to be on the bar. Maybe I'll enter and grab that anchor, but I'm going to lose that racing advantage. And I am normally quite an aggressive player, but this is the time to mix some water with the wine and just calm it down. And so I would play 8-7 here. I remember when this happened, guys at the club going, "Oh my goodness, Grant's made a conservative move. I can't believe it." Yada yada yada. But the situation dictated it. I didn't want to be vulnerable on 2 sides of the board. There was going to be blot hitting going on if he pulls checkers down, and I just thought we need to tidy up. We need to calm it down, and it turned out that was the correct play.
Yeah, so let's take a look.
I should actually add that some of the positions I put up are positions where I've made a mistake. It's not like I still make mistakes. My blunder database is still growing. And yeah, I everybody makes mistakes. As Sticks once said to me, you know how the Giants get their PR of 2, and I said no. He said they get there from the mistakes they make. They still make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. One of the most useful things one of the most useful things I've always thought is, if you make a mistake, just forget it. You can't change it. And there's various reasons I was in Egypt when the Arab Spring was happening, and I was in a guest house in the Anglican church and watching old movies, and there was this corny movie called the Gumball Rally, and it's a cross-country race across America. And one guy hires an Italian driver to be his driver because he really wants to win. Italian driver hops in the car, and the first thing he does is he grabs the mirror and throws it away. And the guy goes, "What'd you do that for?" And he said, "What's behind you is behind you. It doesn't matter." And I do that when everybody makes mistakes in backgammon. Sometimes you realize, oh man, I should have done that. And if I do, I literally just remember that scene and go, doesn't matter. I can't change it. If I think about it, I'm going to make, it's going to influence me, and it can have no good influence. I've made a mistake, forget it, move on. Yeah.
But if you learn from your mistakes, that's how you really get better.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying, while you're playing and the match is ongoing, focusing on what you've done wrong in the past is not good.
Yes, correct.
But with my matches, every match I play, I XG plus it. Then I mark the ones for deeper rollouts. Then I do it. Then I, create my blunder database, or I put the positions into here. Absolutely, you must learn from your mistakes. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you're playing, that's not the time to be kicking yourself and go, I have literally had players go, when I'm playing, go, oh man, I always do that. And when I realized that, and all they're doing is reinforcing the tendency for that error. You made a mistake, forget about it for now, focus on what you need to focus on to win.
Yes, it's water under the bridge.
Water under the bridge, and it can't help you, but it can hurt you. So do not focus on it. Focus on something else. Yeah.
That's absolutely great advice. What I was thinking when I was looking at this position, and this is something I learned from ZZ's book, the Zizka method, as well as Mark Olson and Mochi and Alec Barr's book, Backgammon Masterclass. Mochi talks about, priming positions versus blitzing positions and his strategic concepts. Here, black has a priming position, so you want to kind of get out of the prime. So splitting here is fine. It's not that risky because he only has 8 checkers in the zone. He doesn't have spares anywhere, and it gives better coverage of the outfield because black is going to come down with at least 5s and 4s because he can't move them from out here. And then once you do that, you don't want to kind of have to juggle multiple things on both sides of the board. So you kind of have to safety this despite the fact that you get the extra builder.
Yes.
So
now, that's a very good way to think about it too. That he has got a priming structure. Yeah, you need to split. That's the default, which is in Mitchie's book as well. Split against a priming structure.
Right. Opening concepts.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me stop this. So this was great. I mean, I'm glad to have had you. We learned a lot about you. Outstanding. great stories. Learned a lot about backgammon. Did some positions. I'll go get your books, get the ebook, and read it myself. Do you have, before we conclude, do you have any final remarks? I'd of course love to have you again on future videos, but any final remarks before we conclude this video?
Yeah, just you know, try to encourage more people to play, and be nice to tournament directors. They're my heroes. They really are. And let's just promote this game that we all love. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I think I've learned a lot about backgammon, but some of the most important things I've learned from this discussion and interview from you was just having the right attitude and having the right mentality. Don't think about your mistakes. Don't get upset. Don't behave inappropriately. Just getting those things will get you a lot further than learning about when to split or slot or things like that, in
Mm.
my opinion.
Mm. And thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this. Yeah, thank you. It's been
Okay.
great.
Likewise, likewise. It's been a pleasure. Hope to have you on again. We'll go
That would be
ahead
great.
and conclude. Yeah, we'll go ahead and conclude. Thank you to the viewers for joining me. I appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Please let me know what you think in the comments below and what you'd like to see in future videos so I can work on that. Again, my book, Backgammon Backgame Strategies, is available. There's a link in the description to where you can get it, and I'll put a link to Grant's books in the description so you can get that. If you're interested in lessons, my email is in the description, and I will put Grant's email in the description as well. I look forward to seeing everyone in future videos, and until then, keep rolling your dice.